Let's turn our attention now to track and field on the SportsMax Zone. The Jamaica Olympic Association has come back swinging at the J3As, specifically veteran coach Glenn Mills, for comments made at a press conference on Monday at their headquarters to launch the national trial starting Thursday. Mills had scolded the JOA for not approving enough support staff for the athletics team at the Paris Games next month. The J3As have been allotted 14 support personnel and are requesting an additional 3. In a press release, the JOA sought to clarify the official allotment process, and here's what that statement said. The JOA does not stipulate the number of persons a sport can have as officials on its team, which includes managers, coaches, physiotherapists, and massage therapists. The Paris Organizing Committee of the Games, in keeping with well-established and known regulations regarding Olympic Games, uses what is commonly and globally referred to as the team size formula, by which it calculates and determines the number of officials allowable based on an estimate of the number of athletes expected to qualify. Both the J3As and Mr. Mills are aware of this fact. The amount determined by the Paris Local Organizing Committee of the Games may increase or decrease depending on the number of athletes who meet qualification standards set by World Athletics and who then are named by the J3As after the national championships. For example, in the event Jamaica does not qualify for the men's 4x400 meter relay, this will adversely affect the number of officials allocated to the sport. Both the J3As and Mr. Mills are aware of this fact, the JOA says. The 17 officials requested by the J3As are predicated on the assumption on 70 athletes qualifying for this Olympic Games, whereas in respect of the 2021 Tokyo Games, Jamaica had less. Consequently, it is clear as night follows day that the larger the size of the team, the greater will be the number of officials allotted. Both Mr. Mills and the J3As are aware of this fact. Now, the Olympic Association also addressed the J3As having to pay for their pre-Olympics camp. They said the J3As, without the prior knowledge of the JOA, negotiated a contract with a third party to host a camp in Stuttgart, Germany, and thereafter called upon the JOA to foot the bills when it knew that the JOA had previously indicated that a detailed budget of any proposed camp should be submitted for approval before any commitment was made to the third party. Notwithstanding that breach of basic transparency and of standard principles of accounting protocols, the JOA made repeated requests of the J3As verbally in meetings and in writing, including through JOA's games manager with responsibility for track and field, Olympian Mr. Donald Quarry, to furnish the JOA with details of the contractual arrangements so as to enable the JOA to determine payment against invoices in keeping with standard accounting regulations and practices of the International Olympic Committee and the Olympic movement. The JOA has noted that the majority of requests made by the J3As for the camp relates to cash. Regrettably, to date, the J3A has failed and or refused to comply, which unfortunately has placed them irretrievably at risk. So a very strident response here coming from the Jamaica Olympic Association, Mariah, because they have been on the back foot all week because the pronouncements from the J3As officials and the highly respected top coach Glenn Mills had gone over from a fan standpoint, a very agreeable position that the J3As and Glenn Mills had been putting out there, and I think it alerted the fans that there was a real problem. And based on how it was projected at the Nationals, it was hard to oppose the feeling that emanated from the track and field officials. Was this a good response from the JOA?
I think it was a good response, but before I go ahead with what I think about it, I just want to ask you one thing. Do you feel the same way now that you felt when you heard from the J3As without hearing from the JOA? Because you just said, and I remember you saying it in the last show, but when you heard what the J3A said, you couldn't help but feel like you understood what they were saying, and maybe you felt a bit sorry for the position that they were in. Do you feel the same way now?
Well, as I said on the first show, I was anxious to hear what the JOA had to say, because the narrative put forward by the J3As and Glenn Mills had a solid foundation. Now, the JOA is saying things like the J3As have not followed protocols in respect to like the camp to first of all inform them and put invoices out there so that it could be treated in a proper business fashion. No, the J3As would have to respond to that, because I see nothing wrong with the JOA saying, yes, you're having a camp, but we, as the people footing the bill, would have to be, first of all, a part of the discussion. And even if they, well, from an approval standpoint, I'm saying I'm not sure how they could influence it. But if it is that they have, based on their structure and their guidelines, documented evidence that it is standard for the J3As to put this information forward to the JOA, then if the JOA is saying the information didn't come to them, I guess they have a point. Yeah. With regard to the allocation of officials, I'm not sure if the IOC has a hard and fast guideline with numbers, athletes per official, because I think that there are times when these things can be adjusted. And I am not so much with the JOA on that one. I believe that given the quality and the potency of Jamaica's track and field contingent, they have earned the kind of response from the JOA to be accommodating and to be as supporting as they possibly can to ensuring that the track and field gets the support staff that it needs.
Right.
Because Jamaica has punched above its weight for decades in international track and field. And I just see here that the sort of acrimonious relationship that exists between the JOA and the J3As is at play here.
That's
because
what
I don't believe
I
don't believe that even though the IOC has attached, let's say, 14 officials to a 60-member team.
You don't think it's hard and fast that it has to be?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
And I believe that in a harmonious relationship,
it would have been easier.
The JOA would be more supportive and accommodating to the desires and the requests of the J3As.
Right, and the reason I specifically asked you if you had a change of heart is because of what you had said when we listened to the J3As. And for me, it's very easy when you hear people speak about, just things that we would expect when it comes to administration to be basic things, not receiving those. It makes your heart feel a type of way, and of course you tend to reach out and feel like, okay, I can identify with this. Now, after seeing and reading and thinking about the JOA's response, what I got in the way that the ones with the officials and as well as the money came across is like the members of the J3As understood this. So this is like a, by the way, you knew these things, that it's dependent on the number of athletes that qualifies. That's how the monies will be allocated. It came across like, well, it's basic knowledge that there's an amount of athletes, amount of officials or personnel that can accompany us. So to me, it came across like the J3A, and that's how I read the release, the press release, of course, speaking to those two things that, well, you should know this, this. And it even said that in the press release.
Several times it made reference that Mr. Mills and the J3As are aware of this.
Yeah. Right? So it came across like you're making something out of nothing. That's for that aspect, right? So I get that. And again, I do agree with you, and Ricardo made the point on the last show that a lot of this is coming across like it's more than just the issues at hand, because you said it outrightly just now that if the JOA and the J3As had a mutual understanding or a better relationship, some of these things to me comes across a bit petty, because I mean, between 5 and 6 personnel, or just to push it to 7, shouldn't have to be an issue that we discuss out in public. Like, it's something that if you and I had a good relationship, I say, Lance, you know, I really think I'd need 7 because there's a lot of athletes, it'll be hard to manage. And then you say, well, no, Mariah, you could get 6, but I can't give you 7. And then we just work past that. But the fact that these are the things that are being detailed, it really speaks to that sort of rocky relationship. Then the pre-Olympic camp now. That one, to me, if what is being said here by the JOA is accurate, there's no way that anybody in any organization that I am running can go ahead and book a camp and give commitments to somebody if, one, you're depending on me for the money to pay for the camp. I feel like that one is common sense because it comes like I go on my own beat and book a whole heap of events for SportsMax to cover, and I never speak to accounts to find out if we have the money to do any of these things. That would make me crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that is something I can't come to terms with, I can't understand. But again, Lance, after just reading everything, it can only come back to that strained relationship that I'm thinking about. Things that are supposed to be non-issues are becoming major issues, and it's only affecting one set of people, the athletes.
Yeah, and the fact is that even after this JOA response, which is, from a business perspective, has been a solid response from them.
Yeah.
But when you listen to like Glenn Mills, who has said he has been to 9 Olympic Games, many of those as a head coach or someone, you know, strong in you know, leading a team, and he understands what is required. It is very hard for the viewer or a fan listening to Glenn Mills to dismiss what he is saying.
Exactly.
Because there's going to be a lot more trust in Glenn Mills' experience, having had the success of producing and conditioning world and Olympic champions, not the least of them Usain Bolt. So his word means a lot. And there were several references from the JOA statement dismissing some of the accusations from Mills and the J3As, saying that this is the standard procedure. Mills and the J3As know this, so why are they complaining?
Yeah.
But I think I still, even hearing from the JOA, I still feel that when Mills says that another country like Canada would have 70 athletes and have over 20 officials going with them based on his experience and his knowledge of the Olympic landscape, you don't want to dismiss that.
No,
because we are talking about the Olympic Games. We referenced it at the top of the show. The Olympics happens once every 4 years. So there's a lot hanging on this Olympic year. And for any team to maximize its potential, issues like these shouldn't be cropping up at this point. And one of the reasons why Donald Quarry, who is the JOA liaison with the J3As, refused to say anything on the matter this week because we had approached him, is for that reason. He said he didn't want the athletes to be unsettled or negatively impacted by all of this hullabaloo that's happening at the moment. And as you just said, Mariah, it's about the athletes. They are the ones that are under pressure to perform. And whatever the support the administrators, whether it's the JOA and the J3As, can give them, which includes a successful training camp, they not only deserve it, but they need it, and they are compelled as administrators, I think, to ensure that the athletes have the best build-up.
Well, for me, as a Trini looking on at this, Jamaica is very blessed to have so many medals when it comes to track and field. I feel like even sitting here discussing this makes my blood crawl. It makes me cringe because this should not be what we're talking about in an Olympic year, Lance. You all have the best of the best when it comes to track and field. These athletes, if I was sports minister, should be getting everything. Anyways, I'm not sports minister, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We have a lot more on the show for you, so stay with us.